This story revolves around a man who played his supposed girlfriend and her best friend against each other, yet still expected to maintain a friendship with them. Does that even make sense? Let's explore this intriguing tale together. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, we'll dive into a captivating Nigerian movie that's not just entertaining, but also rich with lessons you can't afford to miss. Let's get started. The movie introduces us to two inseparable best friends, Ovi and Sammy. Sammy is frustrated because her boyfriend hasn't taken their relationship to the next level, marriage, despite everything she's sacrificed for him. Ovi, choosing to mind her business, tries to diffuse the tension by continuing to cook for Sammy, her boyfriend, and herself. Meanwhile, Daniel, Ovi's boyfriend, eagerly awaits her visit. When she finally arrives after a delay caused by traffic, the two share affectionate moments, and Ovi dishes out the meal she prepared for him. However, the peace is short-lived. When someone knocks at the door, Daniel rushes to check and then nervously tells Ovi about a life-changing contract worth millions of naira. The catch? To secure the deal, he must play along with the client's daughter, Lucy, who is infatuated with him. He pleads with Ovi to pose as his cousin to help him through the ordeal, promising marriage once the contract is signed. Despite her reservations, Ovi agrees. Later that evening, Daniel thanks her for cooperating, reiterating his promise of marriage. Sammy, sensing something is amiss, questions Ovi about Daniel's intentions. When Ovi dismisses her concerns and defends Daniel, tensions rise between the friends. Ovi mentions Lucy's name, prompting Sammy to go into detective mode. The two eventually retire for the night, though the matter remains unresolved. The next day, Sammy returns from the mall and tells Ovi she saw Daniel and Lucy together, looking far too close for comfort. Ovi, however, continues to defend Daniel, leading to another argument before walking away. Later, while scrolling through social media, Sammy comes across a shocking post. Daniel and Lucy are engaged, and their wedding is just 2 weeks away. Sammy confronts Ovi with this revelation, but Ovi refuses to believe it, insisting that Daniel truly loves her. They decide to visit Daniel the following day to uncover the truth. The next morning, their attempt to enter Daniel's house is blocked by the gateman, but they manage to force their way in. Lucy is startled to see them. Wasting no time, Ovi reveals her true identity as Daniel's girlfriend. Lucy is visibly shaken. As the confrontation escalates, Daniel arrives, and Sammy berates him. Ovi exposes his deceit, revealing he used Lucy to secure the contract. Lucy, in turn, reveals their upcoming wedding plans. In the midst of the chaos, Daniel denies being in a relationship with Ovi, claiming they are merely cousins. Furious, Ovi slaps him and storms out. Lucy, equally enraged, slaps Daniel before leaving as well. Later that evening, a heartbroken Ovi laments her decisions, regretting not heeding Sammy's warnings. Sammy tries to console her, suggesting they go out to a club to drown their sorrows. Ovi agrees, hoping for a distraction. At the club, Ovi drinks heavily and begins to act out. Despite Sammy's attempts to restrain her, Ovi approaches a random man who welcomes her advances. They leave the club together. The next morning, Ovi wakes up to find the man staring at her. He compliments her for the previous night and leaves money beside the bed as payment, assuming she was a prostitute. Mortified, Ovi quickly leaves without the money before he returns from the restroom. On her way home, Sammy calls to check on her, worried after her sudden disappearance. Ovi apologizes, admitting her mistake. Sammy is relieved she's safe and ends the call. Elsewhere, Jadena reflects on his actions. His friend Henry advises him to give up his cynical view of women. But Jadena insists all relationships come at a cost and that no woman can leave him. Henry dismisses his arrogance and leaves. Later that day, Ovi works from home while Sammy visits. When Sammy asks about her experience with the man from the club, Ovi admits her deep disappointment in herself. Frustrated, she confesses that the man treated her like a prostitute. Sammy is shocked, but not entirely surprised. A few days later, Jadena, another character, blocks a woman jogging on the street and pretends to jog alongside her. He insists on getting her number, and though she hesitates, she eventually gives it to him. As she jogs away, Jadena admires her figure before leaving the scene. Later that evening, Jadena and his friend Henry went to the same restaurant where Jadena had met Ovi, hoping she might show up. Henry teased him about his eagerness, but Jadena brushed it off, claiming they were there just to relax and unwind. The next day, as Ovi tried to avoid Daniel, Sammy pulled her back, insisting that Daniel should be the one running from her, not the other way around. Daniel stepped out of his car and pleaded with Ovi to take him back, expressing his love for her and claiming to be genuine this time. Ovi, however, didn't fall for his drama, firmly reminding herself of the saying, "Once bitten, twice shy." Daniel revealed he had broken up with Lucy and had been trying to contact Ovi, but the two friends suspected that Lucy had dumped him instead. Without further discussion, they left Daniel heartbroken. The following day, during a business meeting, Ovi received a call from her boss, who reprimanded her for an earlier issue. Shortly after, the managing director of the company they were partnering with arrived. To Ovi's shock, the MD turned out to be Jadena. Her boss introduced them, and they exchanged pleasantries before proceeding with their business discussions. Once the meeting concluded, Ovi's boss requested Jadena to drop Ovi off at her place, which he agreed to despite Ovi's reluctance. Left with no choice, Ovi went along. During the drive, Jadena attempted to strike up a conversation, but Ovi acted as though she didn't know him. Annoyed by his presence, she eventually asked him to pull over so she could walk home. Before she left, Jadena confronted her, reminding her that she had approached him first, complimented him, and followed him to his house. Ovi, clearly upset that he had mistaken her for a prostitute, walked off angrily as Jadena teased her. Later, Ovi recounted the encounter to Sammy, expressing her frustration with Jadena. Sammy, however, noticed the passion and emotion in Ovi's tone and questioned her feelings. Ovi clarified that her anger stemmed from his disrespect. Meanwhile, Jadena also shared the experience with Henry, who laughed at the situation as they watched a football game. The next morning, Jadena went jogging and waited for Ovi to appear. When she confronted him about his persistence, he admitted his genuine interest in her and his unwillingness to give up. Eventually, Ovi relented, and they began to grow closer. Later that day, Jadena called his associate Susan, who informed him that she wouldn't be available for an upcoming meeting and would send her PA in her place. Jadena agreed, appreciating that her PA understood her vision and perspective. Around the same time, Ovi, still in bed, received a message from her boss assigning her to work with Jadena. Although she wasn't thrilled, she had no choice but to accept. When she shared this with Sammy, her friend advised her to make up an excuse, but Ovi declined. Meanwhile, Jadena excused himself from a casual fling with some women, explaining that he had to prepare for work. When Ovi arrived at his place for their meeting, she maintained a professional demeanor while Jadena tried to joke around. At one point, he sat too close to her, and when she asked what he wanted, he proposed they start afresh and get to know each other better. As he leaned in to kiss her, Ovi slapped him, warning him to focus on work and call her only when he was ready to be professional. On her way home, Ovi ran into a longtime friend, Gina. They exchanged pleasantries, swapped numbers, and planned to catch up soon. Later that evening, Ovi shared her experience at Jadena's house with Sammy, who was surprised at his audacity. The friends laughed and continued their conversation. That evening, Henry visited Jadena and teased him about Ovi, causing Jadena to leave angrily. The next day, Ovi received a surprise gift from an unknown sender. When she opened it, she realized it was from Jadena. Calling him to confirm, Jadena confessed his feelings and explained the gift was a birthday surprise. He insisted on celebrating her birthday together, suggesting she bring her friends. Ovi was reluctant, but agreed to think about it. While preparing to leave for Ovi's party, Jadena was interrupted by Gina, who convinced him to stay. They ended up spending the night together. Meanwhile, Ovi and Sammy waited at the agreed meeting spot, but Jadena never showed up. Ovi called him repeatedly, but he didn't answer. Feeling humiliated, she eventually gave up. That night, Sammy advised her to forget about him, reminding her that he had ruined her day. The two friends went to bed. The next morning, Jadena woke up and checked his phone, shocked to see 22 missed calls from Ovi. Realizing he was late for a meeting, he rushed out. At the office, he worked with Susan on new ideas for a project. When Ovi joined the meeting, Susan excused herself due to poor network reception, leaving Jadena and Ovi alone. Jidenna used the opportunity to apologize to Ovi, explaining that he had taken a sleeping pill for back pain and hadn't intended to ignore her. Ovi, however, dismissed his apology, telling him it was a sign their connection wouldn't work. She admitted she no longer harbored feelings for him and was ready to move on. Shortly after, Susan returned and the meeting resumed. From this day forward, Ovi began receiving various gifts from Jidenna. Although she repeatedly told her friend that she wasn't interested in him, the gifts kept coming. Her friend often ended up taking the gifts for herself. On one particular day, after receiving yet another gift, Ovi called Jidenna to ask why he was so persistent despite her clear disinterest. Jidenna explained that he couldn't help how he felt about her and proposed creating a special evening for her at his place. After much persuasion, Ovi reluctantly agreed. The next day, Jidenna carefully prepared for his special guest. When the doorbell rang, he was surprised to see Gina instead of Ovi. He hadn't been expecting her, and his reaction gave away his unease. Sensing something was wrong, Gina asked if she was just a side chick in his life. His silence confirmed her suspicions. She decided to leave, but before she could, Ovi arrived. To Jidenna's shock, Gina and Ovi turned out to be best friends. Gina revealed to Ovi that she had been dating Jidenna for the past 2 weeks, which included her birthday. Hurt and angry, Ovi felt betrayed, realizing she was once again falling for a trick. She stormed out, overwhelmed with pain, and Gina left as well, frustrated because Jidenna had been about to break up with her. When Ovi got home, she told Sammy about the incident at Jidenna's place and questioned why deceitful men kept coming her way. She started doubting herself, but Sammy reassured her of her worth and reminded her of how valuable she was. Ovi then went to freshen up in her room. Meanwhile, Jidenna discussed the incident with Henry. He contemplated apologizing to Ovi, but Henry advised him to reflect on his behavior. Henry emphasized the importance of treating women with respect, warning that if Jidenna continued to take advantage of women, he would lose the chance to be with someone truly special. Though Jidenna wasn't entirely receptive, he knew Henry's words were true. A few days later, Susan and Jidenna were walking down the stairs, discussing business. Susan asked her PA, Ovi, to bring her laptop. Jidenna couldn't take his eyes off Ovi as she left the room, prompting Susan to call him out on his distraction. After some hesitation, Jidenna opened up to Susan about his feelings for Ovi, and they continued their conversation as they descended the stairs. One day, Gina, Ovi, and Sammy were hanging out, reminiscing about old times. During their conversation, Ovi's phone kept ringing. Although she and Sammy tried to keep something from Gina, Gina insisted they be open with her, assuring them she could handle anything. Ovi eventually confessed that Jidenna had been bombarding her with calls, so she blocked him because she was tired of his persistence. They quickly shifted topics and enjoyed their time together. The next day, Jidenna waited outside Ovi's place. When she came out, looking stunning, she sternly warned him to stop coming around. She made it clear that the only reason she was speaking to him was because of their shared professional obligations. Jidenna sincerely apologized for everything he had caused, including the rift between her and Gina. He admitted his mistakes, explaining that he should have ended things with Gina before pursuing her. Ovi told him he also owed Gina an apology. They headed to work together, where Gina later apologized to Gina as promised. While in an elevator together, Jidenna suggested to Ovi that they could at least be friends since they worked together. He invited her to a wedding, proposing they attend as friends. Ovi blushed, but agreed to go with him. 2 months later, Ovi and Jidenna were getting along well. One day, after he dropped her off, her friends questioned her about continuing to associate with the same man who had lied to her. Ovi explained that they were just friends. Gina mentioned that Jidenna had apologized to her and advised Ovi to be cautious so he wouldn't take advantage of her again. Although Sammy wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation, she let it go, and the friends enjoyed their time together. On a particular day, Jidenna and Ovi went on a proper date. True to his earlier promise, Jidenna cooked for her. During their conversation, he stood up and assured her that his past behavior of chasing women was behind him. He promised to commit to her and only her. They both enjoyed the evening, growing closer in the process. This story teaches us a valuable lesson. While persistence can lead to success, mutual trust and respect are essential in any relationship. And though once bitten, twice shy holds true, it's important to remain open to second chances when they're earned. Thank you for following this captivating story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting, engaging, and inspiring Nigerian movies. See you next time.